Sometimes you wake up thinking it's just another day, but then life hits you with something so wild it feels like you're living in a movie. That's exactly what happened when I found my favorite fishing spot, quiet little lake in our Pinewood Grove neighborhood turned into a toxic graveyard. Dead fish floating belly up, water streaked with this eerie blue chemical glow, and a stench so sharp it burned my nose. I just stood there, pole in hand, feeling my stomach twist like I'd been punched. My name's Ethan Caldwell, and I'm a guy who's spent the last decade guiding folks through rivers and lakes, teaching them how to fish while keeping the water clean. This lake, tucked behind our houses, was my sanctuary where I'd watch the sun rise, cast a line, and let the world slow down. For years, I've been fishing here, no complaints, no issues, always tossing back the small ones and picking up trash left by others. But that morning, staring at those lifeless bass and sunfish, I knew this wasn't some random algae bloom. Someone had done this on purpose, and I was about to find out they'd messed with a lot more than just my fishing spot. The first clue hit me like a slap. Taped to my front door was a notice from the Pinewood Grove HOA, signed by the president herself, Karen Mitchell. It was a $200 fine for misuse of community property and environmental damage. I'm sorry, what? Me, the guy who spent half his life preaching water conservation, causing environmental damage? It was dated the day before the fish started dying, which made no sense unless someone knew what was coming. I grabbed the HOA handbook, the one I'd actually bothered to read when I moved in 5 years ago, and sure enough, they'd skipped every rule in the book. No warning, no hearing, just a fine out of nowhere. That's when I knew Karen wasn't just playing dirty, she was hiding something big. I'm no stranger to water systems, so I walked back to the lake, trying to piece it together. The blue streaks screamed copper sulfate, a chemical used to kill algae, but this wasn't some amateur job. The concentration was heaviest on the west bank, like someone had dumped it straight from truck. My dad used to say, "A lake's like a living thing. Ethan, when it's hurting, you'll see it in the fish." Those words haunted me as I watched more dead sunfish drift by, their scales catching the morning light. This was deliberate, professional-grade destruction, and I had a sinking feeling it was aimed at me. Then I heard her, Karen, clicking down the sidewalk in her heels, looking like she'd just stepped out of a real estate ad. "Ethan, maybe if you didn't treat this lake like your personal playground, we wouldn't have this mess," she said, her voice dripping with fake concern. I bit back a laugh. "Karen, I've been fishing catch and release for years. You think I poisoned my own spot?" She just smirked, like my 15 years of conservation work was a joke. Then she let something slip. "This lake won't be a problem much longer. Big plans are coming. Ethan, plans to make this place worth something." The way she said it, like she was holding a winning poker hand, made my skin crawl. I started noticing things I'd missed before: fresh dirt piled near the lake, new pipes running underground toward the houses. Someone had been working here, and it wasn't for maintenance. I couldn't shake the thought. Why poison a lake just to frame me? What was Karen's endgame? A few days later, she called a snap HOA meeting, breaking every bylaw by giving us less than a day's notice. I showed up, feeling the room's tension like static before a storm. Neighbors whispered, shooting me looks like I was some eco-villain. Karen's assistant, a jittery woman named Linda, tried to block me from the main discussion area, saying, "We're restricting access due to the environmental investigation." I pushed back, keeping my voice calm. "That's not how this works, Linda. Every resident gets a say." But Karen was watching from the podium, loving every second of it. She stood there in her power suit, pearls gleaming, and laid into me without saying my name. "One resident's reckless behavior has endangered our water supply," she announced, holding up a pledge for me to sign, banning me from fishing forever. The fine print was worksheet mentioned development prerequisites and environmental documentation. She wasn't just trying to stop me from fishing. She was setting me up to waive my rights to fight whatever she had planned for the lake. I stood up, heart pounding. Karen, you can't ban fishing without a vote and an environmental study. That's the law. Her smile went cold. I'm the president, Ethan. I decide what's best for our property values. Maybe you should think about moving somewhere more suited to your hobbies. The room went quiet, but then she made her mistake. Whispering to Linda, she said, "Get the development papers ready by Monday. We need that contamination proof for the city permits timelines tight." I pretended to tie my shoe, heart racing, catching every word. Development? Contamination proof? This wasn't about might, was about turning our lake into something else entirely. My neighbor Tom Grayson, who'd quit the HOA board over Karen's bullying, pulled me aside the next day at City Hall. He looked like he hadn't slept, spreading out water system blueprints. "Ethan, every house in Pinewood gets its drinking water from that lake," he said, tracing the pipes. "If someone poisoned it, they're poisoning us all, including Karen's own family." The realization hit like a freight train. Was she really so greedy she'd risk her own kids' health? Or was this bigger than her? That night, I did something reckless. The HOA office in the community center was barely secured, so I slipped in with a credit card and a flashlight. Karen's desk was a gold minute permits for a luxury condo project, emails with Sunrise Realty Group, and invoices for water treatment companies specializing in algae control. She'd been planning this for months, shopping for someone to poison the lake and make it look like an accident. I snapped photos, barely escaping when security started their rounds. But Karen was one step ahead. The next morning, a sheriff's deputy handed me a lawsuit notice. Karen was suing me for $7,000, claiming harassment and trespassing. My neighbors started avoiding me. Even old Mrs. Larson, who used to bring her grandkids to watch me fish. Worse, my tap water started tasting metallic, like the contamination was spreading. I called my buddy Nate, a water safety expert, who didn't sugarcoat it. "Ethan, she's playing hardball. These lawsuits can bleed you dry before you prove anything." I felt the walls closing in, like I was the crazy one seeing conspiracies where there were none. Tom showed up at my house the next morning, looking like he'd seen a ghost. "I hacked into some old HOA emails," he whispered, spreading out printouts. There was Karen had taken $75,000 from Sunrise Realty to document lake contamination for a city permit to fill it in for condos. The emails were dated weeks before the fish died, with instructions to use chemicals that'd leave visible impact. She wasn't just framing mesh, was poisoning our drinking water for profit. I decided to fight back. Nate and I organized a public water testing event at the lake, a family picnic with real-time results from EPA-grade equipment. Karen showed up early, setting up her own independent testing booth with some slick consultant named Greg. She was all smiles, announcing, "We'll get to the bottom of this mess Ethan caused." Then she dropped a bomb. "We have footage of Mr. Caldwell breaking into HOA property, stealing documents." The crowd gasped, and I felt my credibility tank. But Nate wasn't fazed. He set up his gear, explaining, "These tests don't lie. We'll know exactly what's in this water." 2 hours later, Nate's tablet lit up with results that made my heart stop. Copper sulfate levels are 20 times EPA limits. Lead and mercury, way beyond safe for drinking. The crowd went dead silent. Mrs. Larson's voice broke the tension. "My grandkids have been sick for weeks, stomachaches, headaches. We've been drinking this." Parents pull their kids close, fury building. Karen's consultant tried to spin it. "These levels could be natural fluctuations," he said, but Nate shut him down. "This is industrial-grade poisoning, Greg. Someone with access to restricted chemicals did this on purpose." Tom seized the moment, holding up the emails. Karen took $75,000 to fake this contamination for a condo deal. The crowd erupted. A lawyer neighbor, Sarah, chimed in. That's fraud and a conflict of interest. These emails are airtight. Karen's face went from smug to ashen. Then, in a move so desperate it was almost comical, she marched to the lake's fountain, scooped up a handful of water, and drank it. See? Perfectly safe, she shouted. Within minutes, she was doubled over, vomiting, her face turning gray. The paramedics rushed in, but I couldn't look away. She'd poisoned herself with her own scheme. EPA agents showed up, badges flashing, talking about federal charges up to 10 years for water contamination. Residents started a petition to oust Karen and sue for damages. Tom took over as interim HOA president, passing new rules to protect the lake forever. Cleanup crews arrived, promising 6 weeks to restore the water. Karen pleaded guilty to fraud and environmental crimes, slapped with probation, a $75,000 fine, and a lifetime HOA ban. Her real estate career? Done. Standing by the lake now, casting my line into clean water, I can't help but smile. Karen thought she could bury me, but she buried herself. The truth didn't just float, it roared. Our neighborhood's tighter now, like we've all been through a war together. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. How many other Karens are out there, poisoning what we love for a quick buck? What would you do if your community turned on you like that? Drop a comment. Tell me your take. Have you ever fought a fight no one else believed in? Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's keep the truth flowing.